Good afternoon, people of Earth. Welcome to Titania's Realm at Sacred Space. It's 12:54 p.m. on Friday, the 17th of January 2025. I've had a very busy morning and afternoon. I've been cleaning up the top right-hand corner of my Sacred Space garden, which I designate as the fairy corner. So I literally asked their permission 2 mornings ago to clean it up because they don't like invasions into their territory, and I don't want to incur their wrath. So I asked permission, and I asked for a sign that they were okay with me going into that corner of the garden and I wanted to cut down some baby crepe myrtle trees that are self-sowed there because they grow to be enormous trees and they'll take up too much space in that corner. So I had to ask I felt I had to ask the fairies' permission. So yesterday morning I got up and went to open my back door, and there was a massive big black butterfly perched on the eaves in my back door and the entryway, portico entry to the back door, and I thought, oh, there's my sign, and didn't get to take a photograph of her for Instagram because she got frightened and flooded away. And then I had 2 more signs during the day because I saw 11:01 a.m. and 1:11 p.m, so angel numbers. I thought, and I actually had a really beautiful, lovely day with my beautiful friend Lynn. And first I had to go and see my GP to get my driver's license medical certificate renewed, and then I had lunch with Lynn and we went for a drive around Wellington Point and Birkdale, and drove through a brief storm. The intention was for me to put my feet in the ocean and just soak up the ocean, but this massive storm came, so that was the end of that. So we went and had a coffee at Tanya's Cafe at Wellington Point and had a quick squiz past my mother's former home. And didn't get any triggering this time, which was lovely. It's nearly 15 years since she died, and 13 years, 12 and a half years since the war dispute ended. So I've healed from all that ghastly, fucking epic horror, which is good to know. It frees me up for new and beautiful energy to enter my life and bless me with positivity and peace and prosperity, and maybe even a true loving partnership with a beautiful man one day, someone that's courageous enough, loves me enough to take me on. So anyway, there was that. And so as a consequence, I didn't get into the garden yesterday because I was out most of the afternoon and didn't come home till quite late in the evening. So this morning I got up and I put Charlie outside, and it was a much cooler, lovely morning this morning. Yesterday was scathing hot and reached 37 degrees. So I couldn't have gone in the garden yesterday anyway. And I thought, while it's a bit cooler and such a lovely morning, I just sort of sat and ate this very large breakfast. Hash browns I cooked up, had 5, and garlic bread that Lynn gave me to take home, that we had an extra one that came with our pizza. So I devoured all of that, so I had quite a lot of food in my belly, and I hadn't had much sleep last night. I only slept, my sleep machine says I slept 6 hours, but I actually probably only slept 2 out of that. Spent hours just drifting in and out of kind of a alert dozing stage. So I should have been quite exhausted today, but I got a burl of energy, and I thought, I've asked permission from the Fae, and I've had signs that they're okay with me cleaning up that space. So I got stuck into it, and I've not long just come in from that, so I'm a bit short of breath, and Had to wash my face of all the dirt and dust and sweat, and my fingernails were black. I had to scrape them out. Oh, what a to-do. But anyway, it's all cleaned up now and I feel better, and I left all the elderberry trees because they're sacred to the fairy, and there was quite a few baby elderberry trees, but I'm not bothered by if they take over that area because it's the fairy corner. And but I did cut out a crepe myrtle and a baby elm tree, and I even felt mean, killing them because they were quite well, well growing quite well and almost reaching early adolescence, I suppose. I felt terrible cutting them down, but again, I can't have such big trees cluttering up that area. I've got a lot of trees in sacred space, so enough is enough. Had to be pruned back a bit. No doubt they'll probably, because I didn't dig them out, they'll probably sprout again, so I'll have to keep at them for a while. So there was that, and I noticed that the mother-in-law tongues have really spread out, and the ferns have spread out. But I left them too because they stop the weeds from growing because they fill up the area. So it's all very beautiful. And then I should have come in and gone back to bed because of lack of sleep, because it's Friday and I want to dance tonight. But then I thought, oh look, here we are again, 1:01 p.m. Make a wish, it's the 11 sequence. What do we wish for today? So I'm seeing lots of 11s the last 2 days, which means there's kind of a shift happening, either for me or around me in my immediate vicinity. Positive can sometimes be negative too, but I'm feeling positivity, vibes and loveliness and love and sweetness, so we'll go with that. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll come in and I'll finish off, I'll do go up to part 3. Part 3 of the 2 sisters who were jealous of their younger sister. And I think we should be able to finish it in one video. It's probably about an hour and a half worth, and then I'll have to have a nap, otherwise I just won't be able to dance tonight. It'll just be too much. So we were up to the part where the Princess Perizida had asked Prince Parwez to show her a sign to give her something that would show her if he was alive or dead on his journeys to fulfill the quest to get the singing bird, which his elder brother had been turned to stone, failed in that quest. And the elder brother's sign was a knife that bled if he had died, and all was shiny and, shiny in one piece if he was alive. So Prince Parwez produces a string of pearls which numbered 100, and he says, as long as thou shalt see these pearls all parted one from other, and each running loose upon the string, then do thou know that I am alive. But an thou shouldst find them fixed and adhering together, then be thou aware that I am dead. So we continue from there on. The princess, taking the string of pearls, hung it around her neck, determined to observe it hour after hour and find out how it fared with her second brother. After this, Prince Parwez set out upon his travels, and at the 20th stage came to the same spot where Bahman had found the Darwish and saw him there in like condition. Then, after saluting him with the salam, the prince asked, canst thou tell me where to find the speaking bird and the singing tree and the golden water, and by what manner of means I may get possession of them? And thou, can I pray thee, inform me of this matter. The Darwish, what's happened to my hair? The Darwish strave to stay Prince Parvez from his design, and shewed him all the dangers on the way. Quoth he, not many days ago one like unto thee in years and in features came hither and inquired of me concerning the matter you now seekest. I warned him of the perils of the place, and would have weaned him from his wilful ways. But he paid no wise heed to my warnings, and refused to accept my counsel. He went off with full instructions from me on how to find those things he sought, but as yet he hath not returned, and doubtless he also hath perished, like the many who preceded him upon that perilous enterprise. Then said Prince Parvez, O Holy Father, I know the man of whom thou speakest, for that he was my brother, and I learned that he was dead, but have no inkling of the cause whereby he died. Replied the Darwish, O my lord, I can inform thee on this matter. He hath been transmuted into a black stone, like the others of whom I just now spake to thee. If thou wilt not accept my advice, and act accordingly to my counsel, thou also shalt perish by the same means as did thy brother. And I solemnly forewarn thee to desist from this endeavour. Prince Parvez, having pondered these words, presently made reply, O Darwish, I thank thee again and again, and am much beholden to thee, that thou art fain of my welfare, and thou hast given me the kindest of counsel and the friendliest of advice. Nor am I worthy of such favours bestowed upon a stranger. But now remaineth naught for me to beseech that thou wilt point out the path, for I am fully purposed to fare forwards, and in no wise to desist from my endeavour. I pray thee, favour me with full instructions for the road, even as thou favourest my brother. Then said the Darwish, and thou wilt not lend ear to my warnings, and do as I desire thee, it mattereth to me neither mickle nor little. Choose for thyself, and I by doom of destiny must perforce forward thy attempt, and albeit by reason of my great age and infirmities I may not conduct thee to the place, I will not grudge thee a guide. Then Prince Parvez mounted his horse, and the Darwish, taking one of many balls from out of his scrip, placed it in the youth's hands, directing him the while what to do, as he had counselled his brother Bahman. And after giving him such advice and many warnings, he ended with saying, O my lord, have a heed not to be perplexed and terrified by the threatening voices and sounds from unseen beings, which shall strike thine ear, but advance dauntless to the hilltop, where thou shalt find the cage with the speaking bird and the singing tree and the golden water. The fakir then bid him adieu with words of good omen, and the prince set forth. He threw the ball upon the ground before him, and as it rolled up the path, he urged his horse to keep pace with it. But when he reached the hill foot and saw that the ball had stopped and lay still, he dismounted forthright and paused a while ere he should begin to climb, and conned well in his mind the directions, one and all, given to him by the Darwesh. Then, with firm courage and fast resolve, he set out afoot to reach the hilltop. But hardly had he begun to climb before he heard a voice beside him threatening him in churlish tongue and crying, "O youth of ill omen, stand still that I may trounce thee for this thine insolence." Hearing these insulting words of the invisible speaker, Prince Parwez felt his blood boil over. He could not refrain his rage, and in his passion he clean forgot the words of wisdom wherewith the fakir was warned him. He seized his sword, and drawing it from the scabbard, turned about to slay the man who durst insult him in such wise. But he saw no one, and in the act of looking back, both he and his horse became black stones. Not as smart even as his elder brother, who got a little bit further before he turned to stone. Oh dear goddess. It's true though, men don't just don't like following directions, do they? Probably not all men, but I remember the difficulties I used to have when we first arrived in Brisbane, my husband and I, my former husband and I. We're talking 36 years ago, people of Earth. 36 and a half years ago, almost. In February will be 36 and a half years. But anyway, and in those days there wasn't GPS on mobile phones in 1988. So you had to get your directions with a very thick book of maps called a Refidex. And trying to navigate around Brisbane, which is a very large and widespread city, from one end to the other, and to get to the Gold Coast or up to the Sunshine Coast, you had to kind of plan your trip ahead. And I often acted as navigator because I'm quite good at reading maps. I've got a very good sense of direction, or I used to have when I was young. And my husband would refuse to listen to me, and it would drive the fights. I would say left, he would turn right. Just I think just to irritate me. But it was just beyond stupid what he used to do, actually. And then, the typical Aussie larrikin sense of humour. You'd stop at a servo, which is Queensland for service station, petrol station. And you'd go and you'd say, I'm new in town and I need directions to go to such and such a place. And invariably the people would say, "Oh yeah, it's just 5 minutes down the road, love. Just keep going as the crow flies. It's 5 minutes down. 5 minutes down the road could be anywhere between 500 and 1,000 kilometres down the fucking road." And they really would be taking the piss, That used to grind my gears too. It was really nasty how they'd treat, us, hearing that we were New Zealanders and migrants and didn't know our way around. As a consequence, I learnt my way around just about everywhere because I had young children. My children were still very little when we came. Jasmine was 14 months old and Crystal was three and a quarter or something like that. Anyway, it was a lot. It was a lot. And then because I was involved in my Jewish community and I belonged to Women's International Zionist Organisation, they would have, mother and baby meetings all over Brisbane. Could be from one end of town, the city, to the other. and I would be forever driving and trying to find my way around and having to navigate myself because my husband wouldn't navigate for me, wouldn't help me at all. He was a pig. But anyway, but as a consequence, a fiercely independent woman and a mother that I was then, I learnt my way around the city. Probably wouldn't be able to do it quite as well now because it's been many years since I've had, I have difficulty when I go to the north side of Brisbane, for example, because the streets are all very different to the south side, and I'd probably be able to do it, but it causes me anxiety now, whereas in the old days I would just jump in the car, throw the kids in the car and baby seats, and off we'd go, quite intrepidly and bravely, including in the midst of quite fierce storms, off we would go. But anyway, so it was my little joke about men not being good about being told directions, but I guess it's not true of everybody. It's just because my ex-husband was very, very obtuse. Anyway, enough about him. Who cares anyway? I've been free of that man for 30 years. It's just funny how certain little irritant things like that, finding directions and getting yourself around a new city, was very stress-inducing, not having someone that was patient and would accept direction, get us to places in a much quicker and more calmer, congenial way. Anyway, we continue reading on People of Earth. So he and his horse had been turned to black stones because he didn't obey the directions, which was no matter what to not look back. Bit like, Lot's wife in the Bible got turned to a pillar of salt. It's amazing how fairy stories kind of overlap with similar kind of motifs. Meanwhile, the princess ceased not at all hours of the day and watches of the night to consult the string of pearls which Pawes had left her. She counted them overnight when she retired to rest. She slept with them around her neck during the hours of darkness, and when she awoke at the dawn of day, she first of all consulted them and noted their condition. Now, at the very hour when her second brother was turned to stone, she found the pearls sticking one to other so close together that she might not move a single bead apart from its fellows, and she knew thereby that Prince Pawes also was lost to her forever. The Princess Perizida was sore grieved at so sudden a blow, said to herself, woe is me and well away! How bitter will be living without the love of such brothers, whose youth-tide was sacrificed for me. 'Tis but right that I share their fate, whate'er be my lot. Else what shall I have to say on the day of doom and the resurrection of the dead and the judgment of mankind? Wherefore next morning, without further let or stay, she donned disguise of man's attire, and warning her women and slaves that she would be absent on an errand for a term of days, during which they would be in charge of the house and goods, she mounted her hackney and set out alone and unattended. Now, inasmuch as she was skilled in horsemanship, and had been wont to accompany her brothers when hunting and hawking, she was better fitted than other women to bear the toils and travails of travel. So on the 20th day, she arrived safe and sound at the hermitage hut, where, seeing the same sheikh she took seat beside him, and after salaaming to him and greeting him, she asked him, "O Holy Father, suffer me to rest and refresh myself a while in this sight of good omen. Then deign point out to me, I pray thee, the direction of the place, at no far distance herefrom, wherein are found a certain speaking bird, and a singing tree, and a golden water. And thou wilt tell me, I shall deem this the greatest of favour." Replied the Darwish, "Thy voice revealeth to me that thou art a woman and no man, albeit attired in male's apparel. Well I wot the stead whereof thou speakest, and which containeth the marvellous things thou hast named. But, say me, what is thy purpose in asking me?" The princess made reply, "I have been told many a tale anent these rare and wondrous things, and I would fain get possession of them and bear them to my home, and make them its choicest adornments." It's cost the lives of her 2 brothers, so you'd think she'd be rethinking that by now, wouldn't you? And said the fakir, "O my daughter, in very truth these matters are exceeding rare and admirable. Right fit are they for fair ones like thyself to win and take back with thee. But thou hast little inkling of the dangers manifold and dire that encompass them. Better far were it for thee to cast away this vain thought and go back by the road thou camest." Replied the princess, "O Holy Father and far-famed anchorite, I come from a distant land, whereto I will never more return, except after winning my wish. No, never. I pray thee tell me the nature of those dangers and what they be, that hearing thereof my heart may judge if I have or have not the strength and the spirit to meet them." Then the sheikh described to the princess all the risks of the road, as erst he had informed Princes Bahman and Parvez, and he ended with saying, "The dangers will display themselves as soon as thou shalt begin to climb the hillhead where is the home of the speaking bird. Then, if thou be fortunate enough to seize him, he will direct thee where to find the singing tree and the golden water." All the time thou climbest the hill, voices from throats unseen and accents fierce and fell shall resound in thine ears. Furthermore, thou shalt see black rocks and boulders strewn upon thy path, and these, thou must know, are the transformed bodies of men who, with exceeding courage, attempted the same enterprise, but filled with sudden fear and tempted to turn and to look backwards, were changed into stones. Now do thou steadily bear in mind what was their case. At the first they listened to those fearful sounds and cursings with firm souls. But anon their hearts and minds misgave them, or haply they fumed with fury to hear the villain words addressed to them, and they turned about and gazed behind them, whereat both men and horses became black boulders. But when the Darwish had told her every whit, the princess made reply, "From what thou sayest it seems clear to me that these voices can do nothing but frighten and threaten by their terrible din. Furthermore, that there is naught to prevent a man climbing up the hill, nor is there any fear of any one attacking him. All he hath to do is on no account to look behind him." And after a short pause she presently added, "O Fakir, albeit a woman, yet I have both nerve and thews to carry me through this adventure. I shall not heed the voices, nor be enraged thereat, neither will they have any power to dismay me. Moreover, I have devised a device whereby my success on this point is assured." "And what wilt thou do?" asked he, and she answered, "I will stop mine ears with cotton, and so may not my mind be disturbed and reason perturbed by hearing those awesome sounds." The Fakir marvelled with great marvel, and presently exclaimed, "O my lady, methinks thou art destined to get possession of the things thou seekest. This plan hath not occurred to any hitherto, and hence it is haply that one and all have failed miserably and have perished in the attempt. Take good heed to thyself, however, not run any risk other than the enterprise requireth." She replied, "I have no cause for fear, since this one and only danger is before me, to prevent happy issue. My heart doth bear me witness that I shall surely gain the guerdon wherefore I have undertaken such toil and trouble. But now do thou tell me what I must do, and whether to win my wish I must wend." The Darwish once more besought her to return home, but Parizida refused to listen, and remained as firm and resolute as before. So when he saw that she was fully bent upon carrying out her purpose, he exclaimed, "Depart, O my daughter, in the peace of Almighty Allah and His blessing, and may He defend thy youth and beauty from all danger." And taking from his bag a ball, he gave it to her and said, "When thou art seated in saddle, throw this before thee, and follow it whitherso it lead thee, and when it shall stop at the hill foot, then dismount and climb the slope. What will happen after, I have already told thee." The princess, after farewelling the Fakir, straightway bestrode her steed, and threw the ball in front of his hoofs as she had been bidden do. It rolled along before her in the direction of the hill, and she urged her hackney to keep up with it, until reaching the hill it suddenly stopped. Hereat the princess dismounted forthwith, and having carefully plugged both her ears with cotton, began to breast the slope with fearless heart and dauntless soul. My kind of woman. And as soon as she had advanced a few steps, a hubbub of voices broke out all around her, but she heard not a sound by reason of her hearing being blunted by the cotton wool. Then hideous cries arose with horrid din. Still she heard them not, and at last they grew to a storm of shouts and shrieks and groans and moans, flavoured with foul language, such as shameless women use when railing at one another. She caught now and then an echo of the sounds, but recked naught thereof, and only laughed and said to herself, "What care I for their scoffs and jeers and fulsome taunts? Let them hoot on and bark and bay as they may. This at least shall not turn me from my purpose." As she approached the goal, the path became perilous in the extreme, and the air was so filled with an infernal din and such awful sounds that even Rustam would have quailed thereat, and the bold spirit of Asfandiar have quaked with terror. The princess, however, pressed on with uttermost speed and dauntless heart, till she neared the hilltop and espied above her the cage, in which the speaking bird was singing with melodious tones. But, seeing the princess draw nigh, he broke out, despite his puny form, in thundering tones, and cried, "Return, O fool! Hie thee back, nor dare come nearer." Princess Parizida heeded not his clamour a whit, but bravely reached the hilltop, and running over the level piece of ground, made for the cage and seized it, saying, "At last I have thee, and thou shalt not escape me." She then pulled out the cotton wool wherewith she had stopped her ears, and heard the speaking bird reply in gentle accents, "O lady, valiant and noble, be of good cheer, for no harm or evil shall betide thee, as hath happened to those who essayed to make me their prize. Albeit I am encaged, I have much secret knowledge of what happeneth in the world of men, and I am content to become thy slave, but for thee, to be my liege lady. Moreover, I am more familiar with all that concerneth thee, even than thou art thyself, and one day of the days I will do thee a service which shall deserve thy gratitude. What is now thy command? Speak, that I may fulfil thy wish." Princess Parizida was gladdened by these words, but in the midst of her joy she grieved at the thought of how she had lost her brothers, whom she loved with a love so dear, and anon she said to the speaking bird, "Full many a thing I wot, but first tell me of the golden water, of which I have heard so much be nigh unto this place, and if so, do thou show me where to find it." The bird directed her accordingly, and the princess took a silver flagon she had brought with her and filled it brimful from the magical fount. Then quoth she to the bird, "The third and last prize I have come to seek is the singing tree. Discover to me where that also can be found." The bird replied, "O princess of fair ones, behind thy back in yonder clump that lieth close at hand groweth the tree." So she went forthright to the copse, and found the tree she sought singing with sweetest toned voice. But inasmuch as it was huge in girth. She returned to her slave the bird and said, "The tree indeed I found, but 'tis lofty and bulky. How then shall I pull it up?" And he made answer, "Pluck but a branchlet of the tree, and plant it in thy garden. 'Twill at once take root, and in shortest time be as gross and fair a growth as that in yonder copse." So the princess broke off a twig, and now that she had secured the 3 things whereof the holy woman spake to her, she was exceeding joyful, and turning to the bird said, "I have in very deed won my wish, but one thing is yet wanting to my full satisfaction. My brothers who ventured forth with the same purpose are lying hereabouts turned into black stones, and I fain would have them brought to life again, and the twain return with me in all satisfaction and assurance of success. Tell me now some plan whereby mine every desire may be fulfilled." The speaking bird replied, "O Princess, trouble not thyself. The thing is easy. Sprinkle some of the golden water from the flagon upon the black stones lying round about, and by virtue thereof each and every shall come to life again, thy 2 brothers as well as the others." So Princess Perezida's heart was set at rest, and taking the 3 prizes with her, she fared forth and scattered a few drops from the silver flagon upon each black stone as she passed it, when, lo and behold, they came to life as men and horses. Amongst them were her brothers, who she at once knew, and falling on their necks she embraced them and asked in tones of surprise, "O my brothers, what do ye here?" To this they answered, "We lay fast asleep." Quoth she, "Strange indeed that ye take delight in slumber away from me, and ye forgot the purpose wherefore ye left me, to wit, the winning of the speaking bird and the singing tree and the golden water. Did ye not see this place all bestrewn with dark-hued rocks? Look now and say if there be aught left of them. These men and horses now standing around us were all black stones, as ye yourselves also were. But by the boon of Almighty Allah, all have come to life again, and await the signal to depart. And if now ye wish to learn by what strange miracle both ye and they have recovered human shape, know ye that it hath been wrought by virtue of a water contained in this flagon, which I sprinkled in the rocks with leave of the Lord of all living. When I had gained possession of this cage and its speaking bird, and also of the singing tree, a wand whereof ye see in my hand, and lastly of the golden water, I would not take them home with me, unless ye twain could also bear me company. So I asked of this bird the means whereby ye could be brought to life again. He made me drop some drops of the golden water on the boulders, and when I had done this, ye too, like all the others, returned to life and to your proper forms." Hearing these her words, the princes Bahman and Parwez thanked and blessed their sister Perizida. And all the others she had saved showered thanks and blessings on her, his saying with one accord, "O our Lady, we are now thy slaves, nor can a lifelong service repay the debt of gratitude we owe thee for this favour thou hast shown us. Command, and we are ready to obey thee with our hearts and our souls." Quoth Perizida, The bringing back to life of these my brothers were my aim and purpose, and in so doing ye too have profited thereby, and I accept your acknowledgments as another pleasure. But now do ye mount each and every man his horse, and ride back by way ye came to your homes in Allah's peace. On this wise, the princess dismissed them and made herself ready to depart. But, as she was about to bestride her steed, Prince Bahman asked permission of her that he might hold in hand the cage and ride in front of her. She answered, "Not so, O brother mine, this bird is now my slave, and I will carry him myself. And thou wilt, take thou this twig with thee, but hold the cage only till I am seated in saddle." She then mounted her hackney, and placing the cage before her on the pommel, bade her brother Perwez take charge of the golden water in the silver flagon, and carry it with all ease, and the prince did her bidding without gainsaying. And when they were all ready to ride forth, including the knights and the squires whom Perizida had brought to life by sprinkling the water, the princess turned to them and said, "Why delay we our departure, and how is it that none offereth to lead us?" But, as all hesitated, she gave command, "Now let him amongst you number whose noblesse and high degree entitle him to such distinction, fare before us and show us the way." Then all with one accord replied, "O Princess of fair ones, there be none amongst us worthy of such honour, nor may any wight dare to ride before thee." So when she saw that none amongst them claimed preeminence or right of guidance, and none desired to take precedence of the rest, she made excuse and said, "O my lords, 'tis not for me by right to lead the way, but since ye order, I must needs obey." Accordingly, she pushed on to the front, and after came her brothers, and beside them the rest. I feel very weak all of a sudden, people there. And there's bright light banging in my eyes, so just kind of, close the curtain a bit, give me a bit of respite. Anyway, I'll have a nap after this, I think. And as they journeyed on, all desired to see the holy man and thank him for his favours and friendly rede. But when they reached the spot where he dwelt, they found him dead, and they knew not if old age had taken him away, or if he had perished in his prize, because the princess Perizida had found and carried off the three things, whereof he had been appointed by destiny guard and guide. All the company rode on, and as each one arrived at the road which led him to his natal land, he took leave of the lady Perizida, and went his way until all were gone, and the princess and her brothers were the only left. At last they reached their journey's end, safe and sound, and on entering their mansion, Perizida hung the cage inside the garden, hard by the belvedere, and no sooner did the speaking bird begin to sing, than flights of ring-doves and bulbuls and nightingales and skylarks and parrots and other songsters came flocking around him from afar and anear. Likewise, she set the twig which she had taken from the singing tree in a choice parterre, also hard by the belvedere, and forthright it took root, and put forth boughs and buds, and grew goodly in growth, till it became a trunk as large as that from which she had plucked the twig. Pardon me. Whilst from its leafage went forth bewitching sounds, rivalling the music of the parent tree. She lastly bid them carve her a basin of pure white marble, and set it in the centre of the pleasure grounds. Then she poured therein the golden water, and forthright it filled the bowl, and shot upwards like a spouting fountain, some 20 feet in height. Moreover, the gerbs and jets fell back whence they came, and not one drop was lost, whereby the working of the waters was unbroken and ever similar. Now, but few days passed ere the report of these 3 wonders was bruited abroad, and flocked the folk daily from the city to solace themselves with the sight. And the goats stood always open wide, and all who came had entrance to the house and gardens, and free leave to walk about at will, and see these rarities, which affected them with admiration and delight. Then also, as soon as both the princes had recovered from the toils of travel, they began to go a-hunting as heretofore, and it chanced one day they rode forth several miles from home, and to avoid such meeting, They rode several miles from home, and were both busies in the chase, when the Shah of Iran land came by decree of destiny to the same place for the same purpose. The princes, seeing a band of knights and huntsmen drawing near, were fain to ride home and to avoid such meeting. So they left the hunting grounds and turned them homewards. But, as fate and lot would have it, they hit upon the very road whereby King Khusrau Shah was coming, and so narrow was the path that they could not avoid the horsemen by wheeling round and wending another way. So they drew rein perforce, and dismounting, they salaamed and did obeisance to the Shah, and stood between his hands, with heads held low. The sovereign, seeing the horses' fine trappings and the prince's costly garments, thought that the 2 youths were in the suite of his wazirs and his ministers of state, and much wished to look upon their faces. He therefore bade them raise their heads and stand upright in the presence, and they obeyed his bidding with modest mien and downcast eyes. He was charmed to behold their comeliness of favour, and their graceful forms, and their noble air, and their courtly mien, and, after gazing at them for some time, in not a little wonder and admiration, he asked them who they were, and what might be their names, and where they abode. Hereto Prince Bahman made reply, O Asylum of the universe, we are the sons of one whose life was spent in serving the Shah, the intendant of the royal gardens and pleasaunces. As his days grew to a close, he builded him a home without the town for us to dwell in, till we should grow to man's estate, and become fit to do thy highness suit and service, and carry out thy royal commands. The Shah furthermore asked them, How is it that ye go a-hunting? This is a special sport of kings, and is not meant for the general of his subjects and dependents. Prince Bahman rejoined, O refuge of the world, we are yet young in years, and being brought up at home, we know little of courtly customs. Did I say courtly? Courtly customs. So tired. But as we look to bear arms in the armies of the Shah, we fain would train our bodies to toil and moil. This answer was honoured by the royal approof, and the king rejoined, The Shah would see how ye deal with noble game, so choose ye whatever quarry ye will, and bring it down in the presence. The princes hereat remounted their horses and joined the sovereign, and when they reached the thickmost of the forest, Prince Bahman started a tiger, and Prince Parvez rode after a bear, and the twain used their spears with such skill and goodwill that each killed his quarry and laid it at the Shah's feet. Then, entering the wood again, Prince Bahman slew a bear and Prince Parvez a tiger, and did as before. But when they would have ridden off the third time, the king forbade them, saying, What? Would ye strip the royal preserve of all the game? This be enough, and more than enough. That Shah wished only to put your valour to the proof, and having seen it with his own eyes, he is fully satisfied. Come now with us, and stand before us, as we sit at meat. Prince Bahman made reply, We are not worthy of the high honour and dignity wherewith thou favourest us, thy humble servants. We dutifully and humbly petition thy highness to hold us excused for this day. But if the asylum of the universe deign appoint some other time, thy slaves will right gladly execute thy auspicious orders. Khusrau Shah, astonished at their refusal, asked the cause thereof, when Prince Bahman answered, May I be thy sacrifice, O King of Kings? We have at home an only sister, and all three are bound together with bonds of the fondest affection. So we brothers go not anywhere without consulting her, nor doth she aught save according to our counsel. The king was pleased to see such fraternal love and union, and presently quoth he, By the head of the Shah, he freely giveth you leave to go today. Consult your sister, and meet the shadow of Allah tomorrow at this hunting ground, and tell him what she saith, and if she content to let two twain, and wait upon the Shah at meat. So the princes farewelled and prayed for him, then rode back home. But they both forgot to tell their sister how they had fallen in with the king, and of all that passed between them, they remembered not one word. Next day, again they went a-hunting, and on returning from the chase, the Shah inquired of them, Have ye consulted with your sister, if ye may serve the king? And what saith she thereto? Have ye obtained permission from her? On hearing these words, The princes waxed aghast with fear. The colour of their faces changed, and each began to look into the other's eyes. Then Bahman said, "Pardon, O refuge of the world, this our transgression. We both forgot the command and remembered not to tell our sister." Replied the king, "It mattereth not. Ask her today, and bring me word tomorrow." But it so happened that on that day also they forgot the message. Yet the king was not annoyed at their shortness of memory, but taking from his pocket 3 little balls of gold, and tying them in a kerchief of silk, he handed them to Prince Bahman, saying, "Put these balls in thy waist shawl, so thou shalt not forget to ask thy sister. And if perchance the matter escape thy memory, when thou shalt go to bed, take off thy girdle. Haply the sound of them falling to the ground will remind thee of thy promise." It's very patient and understanding, isn't it? Despite the strict injunction of the shadow of Allah, the princes on that day also clean forgot the order and the promise they had made to the king. When, however, night came on and Prince Bahman went to his bedchamber for sleep, oh dear goddess, sleep. Looks like we've got another storm brewing for this afternoon too. He loosed his girdle, and down fell the golden balls, and at the sound the message of the Shah flashed across his thought. So he and his brother Parvez at once hastened to Perizida's bower, where she was about retiring to rest, and with many excuses for troubling her at so unseasonable an hour, reported to her all that happened. She lamented their thoughtlessness, which for 3 successive days had caused them to forget the royal behest, and ended with saying, "Fortune hath favoured you, O my brothers, and brought you suddenly to the notice of the asylum of the universe, a chance which often hath led to the height of good. It grieveth me sore that on your over-regard for our fraternal love and union, ye did not take service with the king when he deigned command you. Moreover, ye have far greater cause for regret and repentance than I, in that ye failed to plead a sufficient excuse, and that which ye offered must have sounded rude and churlish. A right dangerous thing it is to thwart kingly wishes. In his extreme condescension, the Shah commanded you to take service with him, and ye, in rebelling against his exalted orders, have done foolishly, and ye have caused me much trouble of mind. Howbeit, I will sue counsel from my slave, the speaking bird, and see what he may say, for when I have ever any hard and weighty question to decide, I fail not to ask his advice." Hereupon the princess set the cage by her side, and, after telling her slave all that her brothers had made known to her, asked admonition of him regarding what they should do. The speaking bird made answer, "It behoveth the princes to gratify the Shah in all things he requireth of them. Moreover, let them make ready a feast for the king, and humbly pray them to visit this house, and thereby testify to him loyalty and devotion to his royal person." Then said the princess, "O bird, My brothers are most dear to me, nor would I suffer them leave my sight for one moment if it were possible, and Allah forfend that this daring on their part do injury to our love and affection. Said the speaking bird, I have counselled thee for the best and have offered thee the right rede, nor do thou fear aught in following it, for naught save good shall come therefrom. But, quoth the princess, and the shadow of Allah honour us, by crossing the threshold of this house, must I present myself before him with face unveiled? By all means, quoth the speaking bird, this will not harm thee, nay, rather 'twill be to thine advantage. Early next day, the two princes, Bahman and Perwez, rode as aforetime to the hunting ground and met Khusrau Shah, who asked them, saying, What answer bring ye from your sister? Hereupon, the elder brother advancing said, O shadow of Allah, verily we are thy slaves, and whatever thou deign bid, that we are ready to obey. These, less than the least, have referred the matter to their sister, and have obtained their consent. Nay more, she blamed and chided them for that they did not hurry to carry out the commands of the refuge of the world the moment they were delivered. Therefore, being sore displeased at us, she desireth us on her behalf to plead forgiveness with the Shah and Shah for this offence by us offered. Replied the king, No crime have ye committed to call forth the royal displeasure. Nay more, it delighted the shadow of Allah exceedingly to see the love ye twain bear towards your sister. Hearing such words of condescension and kindliness from the Shah, the princes held their peace and hung their heads for shame groundwards, and the king, who that day was not keen, according to his custom, after the chase, whenever he saw the brothers hold aloof, called them to his presence, and heartened their hearts with words of favour, and presently, when aweary of sport, he turned the head of his steed palaceward, and deigned order the princes to ride by his side. The wazirs and councillors and courtiers, one and all, fumed with envy and jealousy to see two unknowns entreated with such especial favour. And as they rode at the head of the suite adown the market street, all eyes were turned upon them, youths, and men asked one of other, Who be the two who ride beside the Shah? Belong they to the city, or come they from some foreign land? And the folk praised and blessed them, saying, Allah send our King of Kings two princes as godly and gallant as are these twain who ride beside him. If our hapless queen, who languisheth in durance, had brought forth sons, by Allah's favour they would now be of the same age as these young lords. But as soon as the cavalcade reached the palace, the king alighted from his horse and led the princes to his private chamber, a splendid retreat, magnificently furnished, wherein a table had been spread with sumptuous meats and carest cates, and having seated himself thereat, he motioned them to do likewise. Hereupon the brothers, making low obeisance, also took their seats, and ate in well-bred silence, with respectful mien. Then the Shah, desiring to warn them into talk, and thereby to test their wit and wisdom, addressed them on themes galore, and asked of them many questions, and, inasmuch as they had been taught well and trained in every art and science, they answered with propriety and perfect ease. The Shah, struck with admiration, bitterly regretted that Almighty Allah had not vouchsafed to him sons so handsome in semblance, and so apt and so learned as these twain, and, for the pleasure of listening to them, he lingered at meat longer than he was wont to do. And when he rose from table and retired with them to his private apartment, he still sat long while talking with them, and at last, in his admiration, he exclaimed, "Never until this day have I set eyes on youths so well brought up, and so comely and so capable as are these, and methinks 'twere hard to find their equals anywhere." In time, quoth he, the time waxeth late, so now let us cheer our hearts with music. And forthright the royal band of minstrels and musicians began to sing and perform upon instruments of mirth and merriment, whilst dancing girls and boys displayed their skill, and mimes and mummers played their parts. Mimes and mummers. The princes enjoyed the spectacle with extreme joy, and the last hours of the afternoon passed in royal revelry and regale. But when the sun had set and evening came on, the youths craved dismissal from the Shah, with many expressions of gratitude for the exalted favours he had deigned bestow on them, and ere they fared forth, the King of Kings bespake them, saying, "Come ye again on the morrow to our hunting ground as heretofore, and thence return to the palace. By the beard of the Shah, he fain would have you always with him, and solace him with your companionship and converse." Prince Bahman, prostrating himself before the presence, answered, "'Tis the very end and aim of all our wishes, O shadow of Allah upon earth, that on the morrow, when thou shalt come from the chase, and pass by our poor house, thou graciously deign enter and rest in it awhile, thereby conferring the highmost of honours upon ourselves and upon our sister. Albeit the place is not worthy of the Shah and Shah's exalted presence, yet at times do mighty kings condescend to visit the huts of their slaves." The king, ever more and more enchanted with their comeliness and pleasant speech, vouchsafed a most gracious answer, saying, "The dwelling place of youths in your estate and degree will certainly be goodly and right worthy of you, and the Shah willingly consenteth for the morrow to become the guest of you twain, and of your sister whom, albeit ye have not yet seen, he is assured to find perfect in all gifts of body and mind. Do ye twain therefore about early dawn tide expect the Shah at the usual trysting place. The princes then craved leave to wend their ways, and going home said to their sister, "O Parizida, the Shah hath decreed that tomorrow he will come to our house and rest here a while after the hunt." Said she, "And so it be. Needs must we see to it that all be made ready for a royal banquet, and we may not be put to shame when the shadow of Allah shall deign shade us. There is no help but that in this matter I ask of my slave, the speaking bird, what counsel he would give, and that I prepare according thereto such meats as are meet for him and are pleasing to the royal palate." The princes both approved of her plan and went to seek repose, whereupon Parizida sent for the cage and, setting it before her, said, "O bird, the Shah hath made a promise and hath decreed that he will deign honour this our house on the morrow. Wherefore we must needs make ready for our liege lord the best of banquets. And I bid thee say me what dishes should the kitcheners cook for him?" The speaking bird replied, "O my lady, thou hast the most skilful of cooks and confectioners. Do thou bid them dress for thee the choicest dainties. But above all others, see thou with thine own eyes that they set before the Shah a dish of new green cucumbers stuffed with pearls." Quoth the princess in utter wonderment, "Never until this time heard I of such a dainty. How? Cucumbers with a filling of pearls? And what will the king, who cometh to eat bread and not to gaze on stones, say to such meat? Furthermore, I have not in my possession pearls enough to serve for even a single cucumber." Replied the speaking bird, "This were an easy matter. Do thou dread naught, but only act as I shall advise thee. I seek not aught save thy welfare, and would on no wise counsel thee to thy disadvantage. As for the pearls, thou shalt collect them on this wise. Go thou tomorrow betimes to the pleasure gardens, and bid a hole be dug at the foot of the first tree in the avenue by thy right hand, and there shalt thou find of pearls as large a store as thou shalt require." Okay, it's a fairy story, people. So after dawn, I have to suspend belief. So after dawn on the next day, Princess Parizida bade a gardener lad accompany her, and fared to the site within the pleasure gardens, whereof the speaking bird had told her. Here the boy dug a hole both deep and wide, when suddenly his spade struck upon somewhat hard, and he removed with his hands the earth, and discovered to view a golden casket well nigh 1 foot square. Whereupon the young gardener showed it to the princess, who explained, "I brought thee with me for this very reason. Take heed and see that no harm come to it, but dig it out and bring it to me with all care." When the lad did her bidding, she opened it forthright, and found it filled with pearls and unions fresh from the sea. round as rings, and all of one and the same size, perfectly fitted for the purpose which the speaking bird had proposed. Parizida rejoiced with extreme joy at the sight, and taking up the box, walked back with it to the house, and the princes, who had seen their sister faring forth betimes with the gardener lad, and had wondered why she went to the park thus early unaccording to her wonted custom, caught sight of her from the casement, quickly donned their walking dresses, and came to meet her. And as the two brothers walked forward, they saw the princess approaching them with somewhat unusual under her arm, which, when they met, proved to be a golden casket, whereof they knew naught. Quoth they, O our sister, at early light we espied thee going to the pleasure grounds with the gardener lad empty-handed. But now thou bringest back this golden casket, so disclose to us where and how thou hast found it, and haply there may be some hoard close hidden in the parterre. Parizida replied, Sooth ye say, O my brothers. I took this lad with me and made him dig under a certain tree, where we came upon this box of pearls, at the sight whereof methinks your hearts will be delighted. The princess straightway opened the box, and her brothers, sighting the pearls and unions, were amazed with extreme amazement, and rejoiced greatly to see them. Quoth the princess, Come now, ye twain, with me, for that I have in hand a weighty matter. And quoth Prince Bahman, What is there to do? I pray thee tell us without delay, for never yet hast thou kept aught of thy life from us. She made reply, O my brothers, I have naught to hide from you, nor think ye any ill of me, for I am now about to tell you all the tale. Then she made known to them what advice the speaking bird had given to her, and they, conning the matter over in their minds, marvelled much why her slave had bidden them set a dish of green cucumbers stuffed with pearls before the Shah, nor could they devise any reason for it. Presently the princess resumed, The speaking bird indeed is wise and ware, so methinks this counsel must be for our advantage, and at any rate it cannot be without some object and purpose. It therefore behoveth us to do even as he hath commanded. Hereupon the princess went to her own chamber, and summoning the head cook said to him, This day the Shah, the shadow of Allah upon earth, will condescend here to eat the noon meal. So do thou take heed that the meats be of choicest flavour and fittest to set before the asylum of the world. But of the dishes there is one thou alone must make, and let not another have a hand therein. This shall be of the freshest green cucumbers, with a stuffing of unions and pearls. Not quite sure what they mean by unions there. Maybe the shell with the oyster shell that the pearls come in. The head cook listened to this order of the princess with wonderment, and said in himself, Who ever heard of such a dish, or dreamed of ordering such a one? The lady, seeing his astonishment, portrayed in his semblance without the science of thought-reading, said to him, "It seemeth from thy countenance that thou deemest me daft of wit to give thee such order. I know that no one ever tasted a dish of the kind, but what is that to thee? Do thou e'en as thou art bidden. Thou seest this box brimful on pearls, so take of them as many as thou needest for the dish, and what remaineth over, leave in the box." Kitchener, who could answer nothing in his confusion and amazement, chose as many precious stones as he required, and presently fared away to superintend the meats being cooked and made ready for the feast. Meanwhile, the princess went over the house and grounds, and gave directions to the slaves about the ordinance thereof, leading especial attention to the carpets and divans, the lamps, and all other furniture. Next day, at break of dawn, Princes Bahman and Parwez rode forth in rich attire to the appointed place where they first met the Shah, who was also punctual to his promise and vouchsafed to join them in the hunt. Now when the sun had risen high and its rays waxed hot, the king gave up the chase and set forth with the princes to their house. And as they drew nigh thereto, the cadet pushed forwards and sent word to the princess that the asylum of the world was coming in all good omen. Accordingly, she hastened to receive him and stood waiting his arrival at the inner entrance. And after, when the king rode up to the gate and dismounting within the court, stepped over the threshold of the house door, she fell down at his feet and did worship. Hereat her brothers said, "O asylum of the world, this is our sister of whom we spake." And the Shah, with gracious kindness and condescension, raised her by the hand, and when he saw her face, he marvelled much at its wondrous comeliness and loveliness, not realizing that she's actually his daughter. He thought in himself, how like she is to her brothers in favour and form, and I trow there be none of all my lieges in city or country who can compare with them for beauty and noble bearing. This country house also exceedeth all that I have ever seen in splendour and grandeur. The princess then led the Shah through the house and showed him all the magnificence thereof, while he rejoiced with extreme joy at everything that met his sight. So when King Khusrau had considered what so was in the mansion, he said to the princess, "This home of thine is far grander than any palace owned by the Shah, who would now stroll about the pleasure garden, never doubting that it will be delightsome as the house." Hereat the princess threw wide open the door whence the gardens could be seen, and at once the king beheld, before and above all other things, the fountain which cast up incessantly, in gerbes and jets, water clear as crystal, withal golden of hue. Which reminds me, I was supposed to clean my filter in my pond today, but I'm so bloody tired after doing the gardening in the fairy corner. Oh dear goddess. Well, maybe if I have a nap after this reading's finished and it's not too late in the evening, I might do it then. Or it can always happen tomorrow, I guess. Then tomorrow Saturday, the Holy Shabbat. I'll be exhausted from the dance tonight, so, well, it can happen on Sunday. It can happen when it happens. Seeing such prodigy, he cried, "This is indeed a glorious gusher. Never before saw I one so admirable. But say me, where is its source, and by what means doth it shoot up and spurt so high? Whence cometh this constant supply, and in what fashion was it formed? The Shah would fain see it near hand." I'm so thirsty, let me go and get another drink. Yes, let me do that. My throat's starting to close up. I'll be right back, people of Earth. Right, where were we? "O King of Kings and Lord of the lands," quoth the princess, "be pleased to do whatso thou desirest." Thereupon they went up to the fountain, and the Shah stood gazing upon it with delight, when behold, he heard a concert of sugar-sweet voices, choiring with the harmony and melody of wit-ravishing music. So he turned him around and gazed about him to discover the singers, but no one was in sight, and albeit he looked both hard and near, all was in vain. He heard the voices, but he could descry no songster. At length, completely baffled, he exclaimed, "Whence come these most musical of sounds, and rise they from the bowels of earth, or are they floating in the depths of air? They fill the heart with rapture, but strangely surprise the senses to see that no one singer is in sight." Replied the princess with a smile, "O Lord of Lords, there are no minstrels here, and the strains which strike the Shah's ear come from yonder tree. Deign walk on, I pray thee, and examine it well." So he advanced thereto, ever more and more enchanted with the music, and he gazed now at the golden water, and now at the singing tree, till lost in wonderment and amazement. Then, "O Allah," said he to himself, "is all this nature made or magical? For, in very deed, the place is full of mystery." Presently, turning to the princess, quoth he, "O my lady, prithee, whence came ye by this wondrous tree, which hath been planted in the middlemost of this garden? Did any one bring it from some far distant land, as a rare gift? And by what name is it known? Quoth Pirizida in reply, O King of Kings, this marble height singing tree groweth not in our country. 'Twere long to recount whence and by what means I obtained it, and suffice it for the present to say that the tree, together with the golden water and the speaking bird, were all found by me at one and the same time. Deign now accompany thy slave, and look upon this third rarity, and when the Shah shall have rested and recovered from the toils and travails of hunting, the tale of these three strange things shall be told to the asylum of the world in fullest detail. Hereto the king replied, All the Shah's fatigue hath gone for gazing upon these wonders, and now to visit the speaking bird. The princess took the king, and when she had shown to him the speaking bird, they returned to the garden, where he never ceased considering the fountain with extreme surprise, and presently exclaims, How is this? No spring whence cometh all this water meeteth the Shah's eye, and no channel, nor is there any reservoir large enough to contain it. She replied, Thou speakest sooth, O King of Kings. This jetting font hath no source, and it springeth from a small marble basin, which I filled from a single flagon of the golden water, and by the might of Allah Almighty it increased and waxed copious, until it shot up in this huge gerb which the Shah seeth. Furthermore, it ever playeth day and night, and marvellous to relate, the water falling back from that height into the basin minisheth not in quantity, nor is aught of it spilt or wasted. Hereat the king, filled with wonder and astonishment, bade go back to the speaking bird, whereupon the princess led him to the belvedere, whence he looked out upon thousands of all manner fowls carolling in the trees, and filling air with their hymns and praises of the Creator. So he asked his guide, O my lady, whence come these countless songsters which haunt yonder tree, and make the welkin resound with their melodious notes, yet they affect none other of the trees? Quoth Pirizida, O King of Kings, they are all attracted by the speaking bird, and flock hither to accompany his song, and for that his cage hangeth to the window of this belvedere, they prefer only the nearest of the trees, and here he may be heard singing sweeter notes than any of the others, nay, in a plaint more musical than that of any nightingale. And as the Shah drew nigh the cage, and gave ear to the bird's singing, the princess called to her captive, saying, Ho, my slave the bird, dost thou not perceive the asylum of the universe is here, that thou payest him not due homage and worship? Hearing these words, the speaking bird forthright ceased his shrilling, and at the same time all the other songsters sat in deepest silence, for they were loyal to their liege lord, nor durst any one utter a note when he held his peace. The speaking bird then spake in human voice, saying, O great King, may Almighty Allah by his might and majesty accord thee health and happiness. So the Shah returned the salutation, and the slave of Princess Parizida ceased not to shower blessings upon his head. Meanwhile, the tables were spread after sumptuous fashion, and the choicest meats were set before the company, which was seated in due order and degree, the Shah placing himself hard by the speaking bird and close to the casement where the cage was hung. Then the dish of green cucumbers, having been set before him, he put forth his hand to help himself, but drew it back in wonderment when he saw that the cucumbers, ranged in order upon the plate, were stuffed with pearls, which appeared at either end. He asked the princess and her brothers, What is this dish? It cannot be meant for food. Wherefore is it placed before the Shah? Explain to me, I command you, what this thing meaneth. They could not give an answer, unknowing what reply to make. And as all held their peace, the speaking bird answered for them, saying, O King of the age and the time, dost thou deem it strange to see a dish of cucumbers stuffed with pearls? Someone I know would be making a lot out of that. There'd be a lot he'd be making out of that in a most earthy, filthy kind of way. So you kind of have to laugh how art imitates life, a synchronicity of sorts, is it not? The Fae are getting revenge on us both, I do believe, my dear one. Ah, well, on we go. How much stranger then it is that thou wast not astonished to hear that the Queen, thy consort, had, contrary to the laws of Allah's ordinance, given birth to such animals as dog and cat and muskrat. This should have caused thee far more of wonder, for who hath ever heard of woman bearing such as these, indeed? Hereat the Shah made answer to the speaking bird, All that thou sayest is right indeed, and I know that such things are not after the law of Almighty Allah. But I believed the reports of the midwives, the wise women who were with the Queen such time she was brought to bed, for they were not strangers, but her own sisters, born of the same parents as herself. How then could I do otherwise than trust their words? I have to wince at that. Quoth the speaking bird, O King of Kings, indeed the truth of the matter is not hidden from me, albeit they be the sisters of thy Queen, yet, seeing the royal favours and affection towards their cadet, they were consumed with anger and hatred and despite. by reason of their envy and jealousy. So they devised evil devices against her, and their deceits at last succeeded in diverting thy thoughts from her, and in hiding her virtues from thy sight. Now are their malice and treason made manifest to thee, and if thou require further proof, do thou summon them and question them of the case. They cannot hide it from thee, and will be reduced to confess and crave thy pardon. The speaking bird also said to Khusrau Shah, these two royal brothers, so comely and stalwart, and this lovely princess, their sister, are thine own lawful children to whom the queen, thy consort, gave birth. The midwives, thy sisters-in-law, by reason of the blackness of their hearts and faces, bore them away as soon as they were born. Indeed, every time a child was given to thee, they wrapped it in a bit of blanket, and putting it excuse me, and putting it in a basket, committed it to the stream which floweth by the palace, to the intent it might die an obscure death. It was really wicked, wasn't it? But it so fortuned that the intendant of thy royal gardens espied these baskets one and all, as they floated past his grounds, and took charge of the infants he found therein. He then caused them to be nursed and reared with all care, and whilst they were growing up to man's estate, he looked to their being taught every art and science, and whilst his life endured, he dealt with them and brought them up in love and tenderness, as though they had been his very own. And now, O Khusrau Shah, wake from thy sleep of ignorance and heedlessness, and know that these two princes, Bahman and Parvez, and the princess Parizida, their sister, are thine own issue and thy rightful heirs. Remember, this man had people spit on his wife in front of the mosque. When the king heard these words, and was assured of the purport being true, and understood the evil doing of those Satans his sisters-in-law, he said, O bird, I am indeed persuaded of thy soothfastness, for when I first saw these youths at the hunting ground, my bowels yearned with affection towards them. And my heart felt constrained to love them as though they had been my own seed. Both they and their sister have drawn my affections to them as a magnet draweth iron, and the voice of blood crieth to me, and compelleth me to confess the tie, and to acknowledge that they are my true children, born in the womb of my queen, whose direful destiny I have been the means of carrying out. Then, turning to the princes and their sister, he said with tearful eyes and broken voice, "Ye are my children, and henceforth do ye regard me as your father." At this they ran to him with rare delight, and falling on his neck embraced him. Then they all sat down to meat, and when they had finished eating, Khusrau Shah said to them, "O my children, I must now leave you, but, Inshallah, Allah willing, I will come again tomorrow and bring with me the Queen, your mother." So saying, he farewelled them fondly and, mounting his horse, departed to his palace. And no sooner had he seated himself upon his throne than he summoned the Grand Wazir and commanded him, saying, "Do thou send this instant and bind in heaviest bonds those vile women, the sisters of my Queen, for their ill deeds have at last come to light, and they deserve to die the death of murderers. Let the sworder forthright make sharp his sword, for the ground thirsteth for their blood. Go see thyself that they are beheaded without stay or delay. Await not other order, but instantly obey my commandment." The Grand Wazir went forth at one, and in his presence the envious sisters were decapitated, and this underwent fit punishment for their malice and their evil doing. After this, Khusrau Shah with his retinue walked afoot to the cathedral mosque, whereby the Queen had been imprisoned for so many years in bitter grief, and tenderly embraced her. Then, seeing her sad plight, and her careworn countenance and wretched attire, he wept and cried, "Allah Almighty forgive me this mine unjust and wrongful dealing towards thee. I have put to death thy sisters, who deceitfully and despitefully raised my wrath and anger against thee, the innocent, the guiltless, and they have received due retribution for their misdeeds." The king spake kindly and fondly to his consort, and told her all that had betided him, and what the speaking bird had made known to him, ending with these words, "Come now with me to the palace, where thou shalt see thy 2 sons and daughter grown up to become the loveliest of things. Hie with me and embrace them, and take them to thy bosom, for they are our children, the light of our eyes. But first do thou repair to the hammam, and don thy royal robes and jewels." Meanwhile, tidings of these events were noised about the city, how the king had at length shown due favour to the Queen, and had released her from bondage with his own hands, and prayed forgiveness for the wrongs he had done to her, and how the princes and the princess had been proved to be her true born children, and also how Khusrau Shah had punished her sisters who conspired against her. So joy and gladness prevailed both in city and kingdom. And all the folk blessed the Shah's Banu and cursed the Satanesses, her sisters. And next day, when the Queen had bathed in the hammam and had donned royal dress and regal jewels, she went to meet her children together with the king, who led up to her the princes Bahman and Perwez, and the princess Perizida, and said, "See, here are thy children, fruit of thy womb, and core of thy heart, thine own very sons and thy daughter. Embrace them with all a mother's love, and extend thy favour and affection to them, even as I have done. When thou didst give them birth, thine ill-omened sisters bore them away from thee, and cast them in yonder stream, and said that thou hadst been delivered first of a puppy, then of a kitten, and lastly of a musk-ratling. I cannot console myself for having credited their calumnies, and the only recompense I can make is to place in thine embrace these three thou broughtest forth, and whom Allah Almighty hath restored to us, and hath made right worthy to be called our children. Then the princes and princess fell upon their mother's neck, and fondly embraced her, weeping tear floods of joy. After this the Shah and the Banu sat down to meat together with their children, and when they had made an end of eating, King Khusrau Shah repaired to the garden with his consort, that he might show her the singing tree and the fountain of golden water, whereat the queen was filled with wonder and delight. Next they turned to the belvedere and visited the speaking bird, of whom, as they sat at meat, the king had spoken to her in highest praise, and the queen rejoiced in his sweet voice and melodious singing. And when they had seen all these things, the king mounted horse, Prince Bahman riding on his right hand, and on his left Prince Parvez, while the queen took Princess Parizida with her inside her litter, and thus they set forth for the palace. As the royal cavalcade passed the city walls and entered the capital with royal pomp and circumstance, the subjects who had heard the glad tidings thronged in multitudes to see their progress, and volleyed shouts of acclamation. And as the lieges had grieved aforetime to see the queen consort imprisoned, so now they rejoiced with exceeding joy to find her free once more. But chiefly they marvelled to look upon the speaking bird, for the princess carried the cage with her, and as they rode along, thousands of sweet-toned songsters came swarming round them from every quarter, and flew as an escort to the cage, filling the air with marvellous music, while flocks of others, perching upon the trees and the housetops, carolled and warbled, as it were to greet their lord's cage accompanying the royal cavalcade. And when the palace was reached, the Shah and his queen and his children sat down to a sumptuous banquet, and the city was illuminated, and everywhere dancings and merrymakings testified to the joy of the lieges, and for many days these revels and rejoicings prevailed throughout the capital and the kingdom, where every man was blithe and happy, and had feastings and festivities in his house. After these festivals, King Khusrau Shah made his eldest son Bahman heir to his throne and kingdom, and committed to his hands the affairs of the state in their entirety, and the prince administered affairs with such wisdom and success that the greatness and glory of the realm were increased twofold. The Shah also entrusted to his youngest son, Parvez, the charge of his army, both of horsemen and foot soldiers, and Princess Perizida was given by her sire in marriage to a puissant king, a powerful king, who reigned over a mighty country. And lastly, the Queen Mother forgot in perfect joy and happiness the pangs of her captivity. I wouldn't fucking have forgotten, by the way. I'd still be livid, quite livid, although she was probably just grateful and happy to have her children back. But still, that was ugly what he did to her. Destiny ever afterwards endowed them, one and all, with days the most delectable, and they led the liefest of lives until at last there came to them the destroyers of delights and the sunderer of societies and the depopulator of palaces. Sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? And the garnerer of graveyards, and the reaper for resurrection day, and they became as though they had never been. Comes to us all eventually, my beloved ones. So Lord be to the Lord who dieth not, and who knoweth no shadow of change. And as Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day, she ceased saying her permitted say. Quoth she, and this is all that hath come down to us of the story of the two sisters who were jealous of their younger sister. But I have also heard, O King, a tale called the history of Prince Amjad and of Prince Asad, which I shall continue tomorrow or perhaps the next day if I'm not too weary. Just wanted to show you how they finish off the story with this sweet little, can you see it? Sweet little very Arabic looking motifs. So I'm off to have a nanny nap so I can do the wild mosh tonight and dance and be joyous and blithe and happy and live my best life. Yeah, babies, living my best life. Who will I be living my best life with this evening? It's Ramjet again. To you, Ramjet. I'm sure they'll be living their best lives with me, singing and playing their musical instruments with great joy and delight as they do every weekend and sometimes through the week as well. Oh, this next story is rather long. It's going to be at least 3 videos as well. Oh, but look, we have this much of the book left to read. Approximately a quarter left. So there you go, my beloved ones. Have a beautiful day, afternoon, evening, night, morning, wherever you are in the space-time continuum. Remember to choose life and strive to always be of good cheer, and remember, as always, never ever let the bastards grind you, me, us down, and spread joy, nor oi, and live your best lives, my darlings, with harm to none and competition with none, so it is done.